Hey, we're going to be in 1 Timothy 6, but I wanted to share a story about my 6-year-old. Yesterday, we were just getting ready to put episodes on for the kids, which like parenting, you're like, oh, we made it to episode time. The rest of the night's going to be so easy. But right then we heard a knock on the door and her friend came over and said, are you free to play? So Riley, super extrovert, traded her episode time to play with this friend. And I was like, this is perfect. So I was hanging out with my youngest, Luke, and I was listening in to the girls' conversation, and as it sometimes does, it started to like get into the fight mode where one girl would say something and then another would pop in and the other, and it was escalating and escalating and escalating, and eventually, unfortunately, it was time for that friend to leave. Like, they didn't even resolve the argument. So of course I go in, I talk to Riley and I say, hey, what happened? You were so looking forward to spending time with this friend, and it seems like you guys just kept fighting right up until she had to go. And my 6-year-old burst into tears, and she was like, she was bragging. She was making me feel so bad about my life. Every time I said something, she would just say, oh, well, I do this, and oh, I do this. And the girls kept escalating, basically bragging. So it was a hard conversation, but ultimately it was a great conversation where Riley was just saying, man, I feel so bad about my life because everything, and she's a pretty verbal 6-year-old, said everything that I said that I had, she just did one better. And I said, Riley, that is so tough. And so I had this quick conversation with God, like, God, how do I help my 6-year-old to understand, the right answer is not to say, oh, well, you have just the perfect life too, and everything you have is just as good as this friend. That wasn't the answer. I remembered this verse in 1 Timothy 6. It says, 1 Timothy 6, but godliness with contentment is great gain. But godliness with contentment is great gain. And I just prayed, God, help me to teach my kid to be content. What is the pathway to contentment? Man, I tried like every parenting, trick in the book, like see it from her perspective. Well, what if you had said that? And it just wasn't getting through. So I said, hey, Riley, it sounds like you and your friend, you fell into a bad cycle. And what happened when you got into this cycle of saying, well, I've got this and I've got this and I've got this, is all that did was made you fall into a pit. So I want you to imagine, dear Riley, that you have fallen into a pit, and now mom is trying to teach you how to get out of that pit. And she's like, she's crying. How do I get out of the pit? I feel so crummy, Mom. And I said, well, the way out of the pit is to say one thing you're grateful for, and then say one more thing that you're grateful for, and one more thing that you're grateful for. And every time you say something that you're grateful for, Riley, it's like it creates a step in the pit, and you can take one step out of that pit that you and your friend created. And for some reason, that image got through to her. Ever since that conversation last night, I haven't been able to stop thinking about that image. There are so many times where I'm going through my day, especially when I'm scrolling on Instagram, and I'm realizing like I am creating in myself by scrolling through these images an appetite for the life I do not have. And that's a problem because I want to be content with the life that I have. I want an appetite for the things that God has given me, not the things that God has given someone else. So I don't know if you find yourself in that pit of comparison, that pit of being dissatisfied with what you have. But if so, I want you to take to heart the words of 1 Timothy 6. Godliness with contentment is great gain. Are you content? Do you have that great gain in your life? Are you content with what God has given you? Or do you find yourself constantly having an appetite for the things that God has given someone else? If you find yourself in that pit, step by step, day by day, thought by thought, say, God, I am thankful for this. I may not have that, but Lord, thank you for giving me this. And thank you for giving me this. And thank you for giving me this. I see what you have given me. And as I express my gratitude, I am building contentment. As you go about your day, I hope this different way of thinking encourages you.